All right, all right, all right. Welcome back to Mornings with Loretta. And we have a very special guest with us, and that is Dr. Yamicia Connor. I am hearing a little feedback. Hold on.
I'm not able to hear you.
Okay, I think it was something about my delayed start. Okay, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yep.
Okay, we're gonna take that over. So for editing, it'll be easy. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Mornings with Loretta. A very special guest in this segment is Dr. Yamicia Connor, and she is a women's health advocate in addition to being a medical doctor. And so we're going to talk about women's health because May is Women's Health Month, and this is what she does. She is all about making sure that especially expectant women we can normalize healthy pregnancies for all women. So Dr. Connor, when it comes to educating expecting moms, what are the most crucial aspects of pregnancy that you believe they should be empowered with knowledge about?
So I think this is a really important time to be having this conversation because this is an evolving landscape around reproductive health. So I think it's very important for moms to be aware of the things to look out for and what they can do to educate themselves to make sure that they have the safest and happiest and most joyful pregnancy possible. So the first is really just to understand what is normal in pregnancy and to do some, expectation setting. And so education should start with what the typical course of a pregnancy might look like, including physiological changes, symptoms that patients might experience. For example, we all know about in the first trimester, people can feel nauseous and vomiting. But a lot of people might not know that like your taste buds can change, or sometimes you can't tolerate things like water. They might not know about like the plague of constipation in the third trimester. So really understanding those things. And
Mhm.
then the second really important thing is to recognize abnormal warning signs. And so I tell moms to always look out for bleeding, cramping, loss of fluids. The third thing is to trust your instincts. You know your body, and you know what feels normal to you and what feels abnormal. And so, if you ever have a hesitation, um, you know, don't 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 keep that to yourself. If you think that something might be wrong, often moms' instincts are right on target. They might not know exactly what's wrong, but they often will know that something isn't quite right. And then making sure that you have a provider that takes your concerns seriously. Unfortunately not all providers listens to moms and listen to their symptoms, and so you really want someone who's going to take what you're saying seriously.
Oh, wow. I have so many questions just based on what you said. And so I know this is something that you agree with is that pregnancy should really be a time of immense joy and anticipation, right? Of bringing that beautiful, healthy, bundled baby home. Yet many women, particularly women of color, it's like disproportionate rates of complications and infant mortality regardless of how much money they have or they don't have. And that's the part that gets me. It's not a financial
Mhm.
discrimination. It's just women of color, infant mortality rate is high, complications is high. And so here you come, Dr. Connor, an OB-GYN, surgeon, researcher, and a mother of three on a mission to revolutionize women's health care and dismantle those disparities. So, in your experience, what are some effective ways to educate pregnant women about recognizing and responding to warning signs? Because I think, especially women, we're like, it'll be okay, or my mom said that happened to her, or my best friend said that happened to her, but that doesn't mean it's normal, right?
Right.
Because it happened to people. So, how do you educate women when they're expecting, their healthy little babies to come here healthy?
I think the best time to actually start that education is way before you even get pregnant. I think we minimize the importance of preconception counseling. So this is counseling around, what is pregnancy going to be like, but also how can you get your body to be the healthiest possible version of yourself? Because pregnancy is hard. Like you were saying, I've had 3 kids. My first pregnancy was twins, and then I recently had a baby. He's about 4 months old now, and so I can tell you that pregnancy is very hard on your body. Your body changes in a lot of unanticipated ways, and the earlier you can start to kind of prepare for that, the better. But we know not all moms have that luxury, right? And so, even if you're not able to do that, once you find that you're pregnant, the first, I think, one of the most important thing is to find a care team who's going to help guide you through that process, because we do put a lot of pressure on patients. We want to be as empowered, of course, as possible, but at the end of the day, that's our job, right? Is to make sure that you understand and to look out for those warning signs. And so the second most important thing is really just finding a team who's on your side and who's going to walk you through that process. In terms of actually educating yourself, I mean, moms have different strategies. I know a lot of first time moms, they may opt for a course. I've found those to be helpful, particularly for Black mothers, talking about the particulars of what to expect, and the ability to ask questions. There's, of course, talking to friends and family, which could be helpful. But as you were saying, sometimes it could be misleading because things that people have normalized aren't actually normal. And then, of course, there's, a lot of information online, but making sure that you find reliable sources is really important. Um, so those are the ways I would recommend moms prepare and educate themselves.
You know what, this conversation could go on and on and on, but I only have a couple more questions because I know you have to go. But so trusting your instinct during pregnancy or anytime really, it sounds like it's a powerful concept that a lot of women may or may not trusting already. So can you share with us a story or an anecdote where patients' intuition played a significant part in their healthcare journey?
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of times it's in the negative. I can recall a patient that was having decreased fetal movement, and she knew that something just wasn't right. And she went to her provider. They did what sounds like very minimal evaluation, and she felt like her voice wasn't heard. Her concerns weren't taken seriously. She asked for an ultrasound, and they wouldn't give her one. From what she stated, she was only monitored for a couple minutes, not the standard. And then the next day, she returned with a stillbirth. And so when I talk to patients, I try to think about those women who they knew something just wasn't right. And
Mhm.
even when I evaluate my own patients, if someone is saying to me, Dr. Connor, it just something is just not just doesn't feel right. And we've done all the evaluations, we've done all of the workup that at least I'm capable of doing. I don't stop there, right? I try to get more minds thinking about the problem, and that has served me and my patients well. I can think of a patient I took care of a couple weeks ago. She actually had a very rare tumor, it turns out, and we were trying to figure out like what the source for her pain was, and all of the typical things that um, that we were evaluating for, we found no evidence of. But then when she was sent to a higher level of care, they were able to identify it. So that's just a reminder to me that patients know their body, and when people are looking to you and they're saying something just isn't right, I take that seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know in my research and working with some students some years ago about infant mortality, the rate. So is access to healthcare still a thing that some women don't have proper access to healthcare? And so they're not going into the doctor's office. They just go to deliver the baby without having any prenatal care. Have you found that in your research to still be true?
So for some women, it is, unfortunately, there are, a portion of women who don't have access to healthcare. Although in pregnancy, you're eligible for Medicaid, and Medicaid actually pays for about 60% of all births. And so that's a resource that is available to all women. But the things that prevent access to healthcare aren't just, do you have insurance or not? It's how many jobs are you working? Do you have a ride? Do you have a partner that's supportive? Do you have a lot of other kids at home? But I just want to also emphasize that many of the women who are having these bad outcomes, they have providers, they have health care. Because it's so easy to say, oh, these women weren't going to the doctor, or these
Yeah.
women weren't taking care of themselves. That is not, by and large, not the thing that is driving these poor outcomes. Because again, like as you started with, we know that women who are high resourced, still have poor outcomes. I always tell people, for someone, with my level of education compared to like my white counterparts, I still have a 5.2 times greater risk of death, right? And so it's not at all that I'm knowledgeable, I'm college educated, more than college educated. I have, two doctoral degrees, have resources, have a supportive partner. And with all that, we still face a lot of uphill battles. And so that's important, I think, for your audience to keep in mind.
Okay, and yes, you are. Your pedigree is Harvard, MIT, and you're so humble, and I love that. But some research that was shared with me from your office is that the richest Black women have infant mortality rates at about the same level as the poorest white woman. Maternal mortality rates are just as high among the highest income Black women as among low income white women. And even saying that out loud gives me goosebumps, Dr. Connor. How can we get that resolved? Because it is very alarming. It's very alarming.
It is very alarming, right? And I think that the concept of, you work hard, then you'll be able to, take care of your family and, have the life that you want to live and be safe. That's just not the reality. And so, I think there are many reasons. I think the underlying cause is honestly like systemic racism, medical racism, and there are a lot of, um, a lot of complicating factors. But I think if we wanted to just attribute it to, you know, kind of drill down, I think that is what's underlying a lot of these outcomes. And at least our hypothesis at Diosada is that something is happening at the point of care. For example, when women are presenting in extremis, where depending on who you are, depending on the color of your skin, certain protocols that are established are just not followed. And we know that those, different, medicine is in many ways an art, right? There's not one way of doing things. And so much about getting good quality care is about, your provider, um, really, really empathizing with you, right?
Yeah,
Because you
yeah.
can do a little or you can do a lot for patients. And unfortunately, a lot of Black patients are really, disregarded until it's
Mm,
it's you know it's kind of too late, until they are facing a really bad outcome. Whereas,
okay.
if you would have intervened earlier, there might have been an opportunity to really change that, the course. And so that's one of the areas that we're really focusing on is helping protect patients during obstetrical emergencies.
Okay. I know you have to go, but can I ask a couple more questions?
Of course, yeah, yeah. Ask.
Okay,
I love talking
okay,
about
so
this stuff.
people
So
I know. I got. We need to do something here in Memphis, in the South Haven area. Bring you here because this to me should not still be happening. So some of the questions that women should ask, like you say, prenatal care is even better. So genetic testing. When should that be offered in pregnancy?
Yeah,
How soon?
yeah, it depends on the type of genetic testing you're talking about. So there is kind of two forms of genetic testing. So one is carrier screening. So that is testing that you do on mom and dad to figure out what risk the baby has of inheriting, X or Y gene, right? And so that can be done at any point in time, especially if you have a stable partner. You can do that, during your preconception counseling, and I would recommend people do that. There are certain communities that have higher rates of recessive traits, and so have um, they have a stronger there are stronger guidelines that they are should get that carrier screening. But I honestly would recommend, everyone, especially minorities, really think
Yep.
about it because the the positive predictive value of genetic testing, a lot of it's based on how much we know about a patient population. And we know that there's just less information out there about people of color. And
Yes.
so the value of genetic testing isn't quite the same. And so just because historically, there have been less of um, these anomalies found in the Black population, that doesn't mean that that is the truth, right? And so it's important for people to really take that seriously when they're
Yep.
thinking about doing carrier screening. The other genetic testing is what you do on the actual baby, the actual fetus. And that is done during pregnancy. Depending on what sort of genetic testing it is, it's done around the ninth, 10th week, all the way up until the second trimester. But the earlier screening is usually the most reliable and provides you the most information for you to, potentially make decisions if you find out that there are like lethal anomalies, for example.
Yeah. Because I have all these. Oh, I got to do this with you again because I know there are some things that are associated with pregnancy that people seem to think is normal, like headaches and not getting tested for diabetes until a certain weeks. And then if you miss that appointment, you don't get tested. And then this thing called preeclampsia, which my first pregnancy, I had preeclampsia. And during the before the delivery, there were some complications, and I remember them sticking something inside, and it touched, and then my baby came out with a little prick in his head. It actually reached him. Some I don't know what it was, but how can we ensure that we know what the expectations are? And like some people say, well, my baby's not moving, and they said that's okay. How can that be okay if your baby is not moving inside the stomach? I'm
Right,
like,
right,
but see, women don't know that,
right.
and not all necessarily younger teenage pregnant women, but some women who are, because they never heard of it and they said, well, he moves sometimes. I'm not talking about not moving at all, but a decrease in moving is bad too. Can you
Yeah.
address that? And then I promise you that's my last question.
No, absolutely. I mean, all the things you're saying and highlighting are important. I always tell patients, the things I want to hear from you if you have a headache that doesn't go away. If you feel like your baby's not moving right. I tell my patients, I rather evaluate you like 5, 6 times in the pregnancy and just send you home saying baby looks great than you sitting at home wondering something just isn't right, and then
Mhm.
on the flip side we have a bad outcome. Like that is, I still can, all of the stillbirths that I've ever diagnosed, like they leave an imprint in your mind. There's nothing worse. And so whatever we can do to prevent that, we need to do. Bleeding in pregnancy, that's something that needs to be evaluated. And then feeling like you broke your water, or feeling this leaking or abnormal discharge, again, I rather you come in for evaluation and you say, oh, no, this is just a yeast infection, for example. Your water's not broken, then you sitting at home for a couple days thinking like, oh, this is nothing, until, the both you and the baby are in danger. And there are kind of a handful of things kind of like that, that
Mhm.
I try to educate my patients on from the very beginning and every single visit, reminding them, and then also making sure that they have the paperwork, and the reading and the materials at home, to reference when they have these symptoms, because it's hard to remember all of that, right? This is something I do
It
day in, day
is.
out.
It is.
But what we want patients to know is like, this is a reliable, that's one of the reasons we're actually writing a book on this, focus really centering Black women, because we want you to know that you have a reliable resource that you can go to when you do have these questions, right? It's not about keeping every single thing in your head, but obviously we want you to go to your care team. But if you feel like you're not getting reliable answers, we want you to also have a reliable resource.
Oh my goodness. I know I said that was the last question.
No,
Monica had a great question from our audience. She says, does the multiracial ethnicity of women of color in the US make genetic testing more difficult? Because we're a little of this, we have some of this in our blood, and that ethnicity is known for this, and being Black is known for that, being maybe Hispanic is known for that. And then you have all that mixed together. So how do they know how to treat everybody?
So yes, I would say that, and that's one thing that I think physicians, particularly in the cancer space, I think this is really when I think it comes up, more, because again, the quality of a genetic test result, is higher if you have more quote unquote normals, right? Because there's a certain amount of baseline variation, that's going to exist in a population just normally. And so you have to have a good understanding of what's normal so that you can identify if there is something different. Is that a difference that's abnormal, or is that something in the range of normal? And for minority populations, particularly Black populations, that pool that we have of normals is just not robust enough. And so a lot of times we get anomalies or changes, that we just don't understand what's the significance of this. And so I always tell people, like, even if you, like, a great story is a friend of mine, she had me review her genetic testing, because she has a family history of uterine and breast cancer. And it turns out one of the mutations that she had very recently in a paper published that year, had been linked to uterine cancer. Whereas when she spoke with her doctor, there wasn't any information on this particular variant. And so it's a constant evolution. And so it's something that you need to revisit. And also, patients of color just have to understand that the reliability of that result is just not as robust as if you were, of white European ancestry.
Okay. So are you also educating other physicians? Are these conversations that you're having not only with your patients on how to make sure that pregnancy is a joy and it is one of the most honorable thing I think women do. And not saying if you don't have babies that you're not honorable, but I'm being a mom of 5 sons. That is my highest level of joy, is being their mom. So are you talking to other physicians? Is there some kind of training you're doing or conferences that you are hosting to share this information with physicians as well?
So that's one of the things that we're developing, because you know, we want to make sure that we're obviously taking care of our patients to the highest quality standard, but we can't take care of every single person. And so we want the community to, just elevate the way that they take care of patients,
Mhm.
particularly Black patients, because we have
Yeah.
our protocols, we have, it's not like doctors don't understand what to do, but there is some sort of disconnect that is happening, that we honestly want to understand better. And we, as we understand that better, we hope to disseminate that information and share it with other providers, because that's the only way that we're really going to have an impact, that's going to change outcomes for Black women.
Absolutely. Okay, so where can we go for more information? I promise you that's my last question.
So we can, if you can visit our website. So the website is diosara.com. And then also my personal website, which is just my first and last name, jamiciaconnor.com. Links to both the nonprofit that I have started, as well as the women's health company. And both of those should give you some insight into what we're developing. And then, of course, obviously reaching out directly to us. We love talking about this. Again, this is like a passion of mine. As a mother, I look at my daughter, and I want better for her, and this is the only way that I know, at least, to try to help bring that about.
Again, I could have this conversation with you for the next 2 hours and not run out of questions, and you not run out of answers, because I know how passionate you are about this topic in particular. So not only thank you for your time this morning, but thank you for the work you do, because I know you were at the hospital before this interview and you were doing some other things. And so you just making it all happen, because your passion is truly, truly exuded in every fiber of your being, and how you do want to level this field, to have equity in women for healthcare, because these stats should not be happening in 2024 that you've uncovered. But thank you for the work you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's making a huge impact. We got a long way to go, but we've come a long way, and a lot of it can be attributed to your work and your team's work. And just continue. If you need us, we're right here for you, championing you and cheering you on.
Thank you. That's very kind.
All right. Thank you so much. We hope you'll come again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So let me tell you about the very humble and honorable Dr. Yamicia Connor. She is an experienced OB-GYN with a heart for change. She uses her medical know-how and passion for justice to fight for every woman's right to good health. After completing her undergraduate education at MIT, she earned a medical degree from Harvard Medical School through the Harvard MIT Health Science and Technology Department, and a PhD from MIT in medical engineering and medical physics. Following the completion of her OB-GYN residency, a transformative journey that honed her skills and deepened her commitment to advancing women's health, she pursued a Commonwealth Fellowship in Minority Health Policy. She acquired a Master of Public Health degree, further enhancing her perspective on healthcare diversity, delivery, and policy. She also founded Race to a Better Health and Diosara, initiatives that embody her dedication to improving health outcomes and advocating for policy change. Dr. Yamicia Connor, we salute you. Thank you all so much for watching. In closing, think positive, dream big dreams, help someone along the way. And guess what? I'll see you there very, very soon.